You getting BTS? Look at how happy I am. Here we are, first photo shoot for 8-track to Emoji. The original motivation for 8-track to Emoji was the entitlement myth that young people are entitled, millennials are entitled, all that vibe. I heard that over and over again as I was working with professionals, and in my experience that was not true. At Paradigm Shift, we've hired young people for the last 10 years, and they are not entitled. They may be impatient, and in 8-track to Emoji, the book, we talk about those things that lead to impatience, things like instant gratification, and that we live in just an immediate society, but they are not entitled. That was the initial genesis. But once I dove into the material, I realized in my interviews, in talking with leaders from all across the country, that this is an issue. People walk in with certain biases against people who are older than them, against people who are younger than them, and there is a generational divide. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can be a cross-generational leader. I don't care how old you are, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, it doesn't matter. You can connect with people from all ages if you have the right attitude. I think of it, the difference in baby boomers and Gen Z, the same way that I consider the differences in my grandparents' generation and my generation. So for a disclaimer, I'm the oldest of the millennials. I'm 40 years old, I was born in 1981. My grandparents lived a totally different life than me. They did not have indoor plumbing. They did not have a television growing up. They did not have any of the modern amenities that I grew up with. But my parents' generation and my generation were very similar. They had TV, I had TV. They had indoor plumbing, I had indoor plumbing. Now, I had a lot more channels, but there wasn't a great difference. Gen Z and boomers are catastrophically divided in technology. It's unparalleled. No generation has differed from any other generation like Gen Z to their predecessors. Think about it. Gen Z, you had the internet when you were 10 years old. Even if that was the only fact, that would separate you from every other millennia. Compound that with the effects of a smartphone, social media, and other technological advances, and it's just a cataclysmic difference. It's so hard for us to fathom. So imagine if you have someone from like a biblical era, a time millennia ago, and you try to describe to them something like LASIK eye surgery. It's really hard for them to understand that. That's the similar difference in Gen Z trying to explain something to a boomer. The boomer has often no point of connection with that. Now, there are some that are obviously more adept. I'm not broadcasting everyone in the same light. But as far as the technological differences, that's gargantuan. And that's the biggest difference, technological advancement. The differences in technology have compounded so quickly that even people within the same generation, because I'm a millennial, born in 1981, but someone born in 1996 is a millennial. But we have totally different interactions with technology, specifically phones. So I did not have a phone, a cell phone, until I graduated high school. I didn't have a smartphone until I was almost 30. Someone who was born in 1996 had a phone when they were in upper middle school, a smartphone when they were in high school. That difference, even within the same generation, is hugely distinct. That's why now, and I'm a millennial, we like to be pretentious. We have these micro generations like Zennials, which I'm one part Gen X, one part millennial, Zennial with an X. So we have these micro generations which are not inaccurate. We focus on those differences often. Differences in technology, differences in information, differences in the speed of life. Humans are humans. So if you take the same examples that we talk about in the book, someone from even a different millennia, a different era, a different complete generation, they still need love, they need to be heard, they want connection, they want stability, they want security. Those forms, the mediums that we have used are changing and will continue to change, but human beings at our core are the same. That's what leaders should focus on. You should navigate the mediums, but focus on the message. We asked people that specific question. What is good leadership across generations? And there were 3 things that continue to resound. Number 1, every generation, Boomer, Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z said, be a learner. People respond to open-mindedness. People respond to people who are continually learning. So the number 1 trait was be a lifelong learner. Number 2, be a listener. And we've taken that a step further and actually developed a single phrase that encapsulates most of cross-generational leadership. Listen with the intent to believe. So if I'm speaking to someone who's younger than me, I don't immediately dismiss their thought. Listening with the intent to believe is not just listening out of courtesy, but with an intention to understand where they are coming from. So that's the phrase that leaders should adopt. If you're younger and listening to someone who is older, you should also not roll your eyes quickly and think that they are completely out of touch. Listen with the intent to believe. It's a principle that is universal and hard to implement. And the third and final piece was maybe the most interesting. It was give people a chance to succeed. So cross-generationally, people want an opportunity to succeed. They want you to give them, overcome your personal assumption that they will fail because of their age. That's giving people an opportunity to succeed. This book is cross-generational. If you are in a place of leadership, if you're not in a place of leadership, if you're a boomer, if you are Gen Z, if you're anywhere in between, this book is for you. It's about 360-degree leadership. We don't chastise people who are young. We don't chastise people who are old. We pick on people who are young, and we also pick on people who are old. We all have idiosyncrasies. Within all of our generations, there are things that we can, characterize. We can caricature those personality traits. But by and large, this book is about leadership. There's a great quote that I'll paraphrase. I don't have it memorized, but it goes something like this. Young people today are tyrants. Children now run their homes. They disrespect their elders. They have no attention to authority. Socrates, over thousands of years ago, was talking about a generational gap. We have that same generational gap today. So it shows us that it's not an age problem, it's a leadership problem. That there will always be differences in generations. It's up to us as leaders to navigate those. So when people pick up the book, they may think this is going to be about overcoming negativity, and that's part of it, that we want to overcome some of the stereotypes and generalizations that we can make about people in other generations. But truthfully, the generational gap is needed. We want it. I have 3 kiddos. I've got an 11-year-old, I've got a 9-year-old, and I got a 3-year-old. And they're actually part of Generation Alpha, who's coming after Generation Z. I want there to be differences in our generation. Why? I want progress. I want their life to be better than mine. I want them to have opportunities that I don't have. So we can't have our cake and eat it too. We can't say that, I wish I could go back to the good old days, and that my kids would have a better life. Those two things can't coexist. So we want generational differences. We just have to work to connect when those differences exist.